Good morning, everyone. Today we're going through Poor Charlie's Almanac, continuing the Psychology of Human Misjudgement. And we're continuing with number 2 and 3. This is how the book looks, and I highly recommend getting it and studying it. And why are these principles important? Well, because they can teach us to be more rational. And if we can be more rational, we can make better decisions, and then we can have a better quality of life when it comes to our business, our investing, our life, our finances, everything. So, because if we, as I walked through in the previous video, if we take 100 decisions each day, and if we today make 80% of them good decisions and 20% bad decisions, then if we can eliminate just 10 of those bad decisions and replacing them with good decisions, we will have a slightly upwards curve in life, a positive compounding. So, and this can really help us to have a better quality of life. And I'm here in Brazil, so if you hear any exotic birds in the background, that's why. So we're going to continue with number 2 today, and it's called the liking-loving tendency. And why is that important? Because if we start liking and loving the wrong people, we will start to emulate their behavior, and that can have a really detrimental effect on our quality of life. For example, we can see the person falling in love with a psychopath, for example, falling for their manipulation, or someone who falls in love with a criminal, for example. They will also have a downward spiral in life. Because when we like someone, like a friend, or when we love someone like a partner, then we will automatically our brain will shift toward imitating and emulating qualities from this other person. This principle really tells us to choose our friends wisely, because we will start to imitate and emulate their behavior. So it's important to have high quality friends that have qualities that we want to emulate and that we admire. And it's also important to choose who we look up to and who we admire, because we will naturally also gravitate towards their type of behavior. And Charlie, he wrote about this to make friends with the eminent dead, that you don't actually need to be living in the same century or in the same time as the person you're trying to emulate. You can actually study them and make them your friends, even though they're not alive. And he used this with a lot of people, like Benjamin Franklin, for example. That was his greatest idol, and he looked up to his qualities and really studied him. And Charlie was also a fanatic about reading biographies. So he was really doing this to make friends with the eminent dead, to emulate their qualities and behavior. How can we then use this principle? Well, for example, if we're a sales manager in our company, we could create a culture where sales results are rewarded. If we have a culture where sales are rewarded and cherished in the group, people will naturally perform more easy, because that behavior is what is admired and rewarded socially in the group. If we are an entrepreneur, we can make sure to join groups with other entrepreneurs where performance and results are rewarded and cherished. If you want to study some subject or study in school or university, you could join a group who have really high performance results, who are good at studying and have great grades. And then naturally you want to, just by being in that group, and you want to be admired and looked up to in that group, you will perform, because that will kind of keep you part of that group. So we can also see when this is not working in our favor, this principle. For example, if you want to build an investment portfolio, but all of your friends have a more socialist way of thinking, or none of them think in a capitalist way, and think money is the root of all evil, then it will be very, very difficult to do so, because each decision that you rationally think is good, just by being in that group, you will think that, okay, if I take that decision, I will not be as respected in this group. So, and that all that will happen in a subconscious level. So then you will naturally gravitate towards what this group is valuing and cherishing. Or you can see the person who is an alcoholic, for example, if they really want to quit drinking, but they still keep their old friends who drink heavily, then it would be almost impossible to stop drinking, because what is cherished in that group might be drinking and partying and so on. So that might be an impossible thing. So by surrounding ourselves with people who have similar goals and values as ourselves, we will naturally perform better, and we will have a much easier time to succeed in what we want, just because the people around us have the same values, and we will be cherished by the group by performing these goals. So in a family, we can make sure to express love, admiration when we reach a goal. For example, when we get a new client in the business and we make a great investment result, for example, if we make sure to celebrate those times, we will also have an easier time to make those things happen. And the opposite is also true. We can get in trouble if we only express love and admiration or like love for a child when it's sad, for example, and only paying attention to the child when expressing sadness or have failed, or because then it's actually that was what the child is learning, what is rewarded. So I think it's very important to actually of course pay attention to the child then, but when they do something great, that should be celebrated. So how would be the worst use of this principle? How could we really mess up our life with this principle? If we look at Charlie Munger's way of inverting, always invert, like he said. Well, if we want to really mess things up, we can marry a psychopath or someone addicted to alcohol or drugs or addicted to anything. We can have a criminal as a hero in life, or that we marry a criminal. We can have friends who are criminals or in a gang or something like this, because all these things will naturally pull us in the wrong direction, and we will start to become more like these people, and we will have naturally our life will start to spiral downwards. So if we invert this, how can we use this principle to have a great quality of life and great relationships? So we can marry a high quality person. So this is something that Warren Buffett, when he met Monish Pabrai and his family, and he talked with the daughters of Monish Pabrai, Moonsan Pabrai, I think her name is. When she was a child, I think she asked or something, what is the most important decision in life? And he said, the person you marry. So he put a lot of emphasis on that. And I think she said in one interview that really had stayed with her, that train of thought. So we need to choose our heroes wisely. And like I said before, like Charlie Munger, that he made friends with the eminent dead. He looked up to Benjamin Franklin was his biggest influence and hero in life. And he really tried to emulate him by both reaching financial freedom by himself, creating I think Benjamin Franklin, he had a printing business and was a journalist, and then he made all of these inventions to help society, basically. And Charlie Munger, he really used that as try to clone his way of thinking and his behavior. So Charlie, he really wanted to reach financial freedom, and he wanted to do really good for good for society. So Charlie has, for example, been on boards of many of a hospital. He has designed student housing at universities in the US, and has done many things that have improved society. So simply by having the right hero in life, like a North Star that we're kind of following, that can really help us to live a great quality of life. So we can make sure to have high quality friends with behaviors and a culture that you want to develop in yourself. Because just by being in this group, you will naturally start to emulate their behavior simply because that is what is admired in this social group. So now we come into the principle number 3, disliking, hating tendency. And just as Charlie writes that people have a natural tendency to love and like each other, people also have a tendency to hate other people. And we can see this, that humans have had since the beginning of humanity, there have been wars between different groups of people, for example. And we can also see this in politics, for example, or in families. Warren Buffett, he says that a major difference between rich and poor is that the rich can spend their life suing their relatives. So we can see this with one sibling, for example, often hating another sibling, and then they spend the rest of the life disliking each other and kind of obsessed by that thought, and maybe they fight over an inheritance or something. Charlie writes about that when a person hates or dislikes another person, they also tend to ignore any positive sides or any positive virtues of that person. And also anything associated with that other person, they will also hate, like if it's products of a company or if it's one, for example, relatives or family members to that hated person. So, and we can see that, in different groups of people who have war with each other, that, that hate is really present. That is what fueling this war, this belief that the other, hate for the other group of people. And then they will also try to convince others to join their group of hating that other group. So they try to get other people to join their cause. And I really think that this tendency becomes more and more strong, and one part of that might be social media, because social media tend to show us more and more videos and posts, and each time it tends to push our viewpoint a little bit to a more extreme viewpoint. So, and when you have big groups of people doing this with opposite viewpoints, if one person is left and one person is right, and they slightly get pushed to the sides, to the extremes, and they only get exposed to ideas that they agree with and that slightly push them to the side, you will have more and more extremes in society that really hate and dislike each other, and that are really bad at looking at things from the other person's perspective, from the other group's perspective. And then I think we can get in a lot of trouble, and I think that is what's happening right now. And I think that can really sabotage your mind and sabotage the way you're thinking, because you're slightly getting more and more to one side of one extreme way of thinking, rather than being more objective and more rational. I think that's the opposite of rationality. We can also, for example, see children inherit their parents' beliefs of what they, both what they like, but also here what they hate and what they dislike. And probably here you can see that if two groups of people hate each other, and the children will also inherit their parents' beliefs of hating this other group. And you can see there that is not a rational way of thinking. The children does not themselves examine where this belief come from, and if it's valid, and if it actually helps them. So it might be a good idea to look at if you have any of these hatreds towards another group of people, or if you have it towards in politics, for example, to examine this hatred, where it comes from, and if it's sabotaging your thinking, because this is as Charlie writes it, it's one of the ways of how we can of human misjudgment, of one way of thinking that can really sabotage our brain and make it into mush. So let's summarize this video and what we've learned. So we can examine who we like and who we admire, make sure that it's a person who has qualities we want to develop, and we can examine if we have any hatred. Is there any group that you hate or dislike, or is it any political party, any type of music? Examine those beliefs and see why they're there. Have you just inherited them from your parents, from your religion, or from your social group, because they might be turning your brain into mush and making you do stupid things. So examine both of these, make sure that you have good quality people that you admire as heroes. Make sure to spend time with high quality individuals in order to be in a group where behavior and goals are rewarded that are aligned with what you want to achieve. So to spend more time with those people and have those as heroes, and see which people you hate or dislike in order to examine those, to not be fully stuck in that way of thinking. And why is this important? Because Charlie points out, we have a certain amount of ways of thinking that our brain naturally that we have a miscognition, that we make big mistakes in thinking in these ways. And by examining them and learning them, we can naturally avoid these ways of how our brain tricks us into making things too simple, or to just automatically choose one option over the other. And this can really help us to have a better quality of life, make much more rational decisions, which is something that I've seen is really, really important in relationships, business, investing. And because if we can take more rational decisions, we will, instead of just, as some people, just move around in circles and never develop or go to the next level, that can really help us to have a good quality of life and avoid big mistakes that others might make. So hope you find this video helpful, and for me it's really helpful to express these ideas, because then I learn them myself and I start to think in new ways. So thank you so much for watching, and it would be amazing to see if you have any thoughts about this, and if you have any questions, just write below and I'm happy to help. So see you in the next one. Ciao ciao.